My sister stood up at Thanksgiving, her wine glass trembling just enough to look dramatic, and said, "Olivia needs to stop begging for money. It's pathetic." Everyone laughed softly like cruelty was a family tradition. I didn't argue. I just reached for my phone, opened my banking app, and started canceling 6 years of secret payments, her credit cards, her car, her loans, all gone in 30 seconds. She didn't even notice until her phone began buzzing nonstop. Declined. 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 You should have seen her face when she realized who pulled the plug, but trust me, that wasn't revenge. That was only the opening move. Thanksgiving has always been my mother's favorite performance. The house glowed like a magazine spread, cranberry-scented candles, polished silver, and a centerpiece that looked too perfect to touch. Every year, Amanda made her grand entrance 30 minutes late, Burberry coat draped just so her husband Derek trailing behind with the kind of practiced smile rich men wear. I'd show up quietly, pie from the grocery store in one hand, car keys in the other. Nobody ever noticed I was on time. You learn patterns when you grow up as the family's afterthought. Mom would beam at Amanda like sunlight while saving her that tone for me. Half pity, half disapproval. "At least you're stable, Olivia," she'd say, as if stability were a consolation prize. Dad would chime in about Amanda's entrepreneurial spirit, conveniently forgetting her Etsy store lasted 3 months and lost money. It didn't matter. Amanda sparkled. I balanced spreadsheets. I made more money than anyone in that room, but to them, I'd never be interesting enough to brag about. 4 years earlier, before all this, Amanda called me crying. Midnight. Her voice shook the way it always did when she needed something. "Liv, I maxed out a card on the kitchen remodel. Derek can't know, please, just this once. I'll pay you back." The payment was $890. I wired it before I even asked a question. That's what sisters do, right? Help each other. But once became twice, then every month. Credit cards, a car loan, an insurance bill. Her emergencies turned into lifestyle maintenance. By year 4, I was covering $3,600 a month, enough to buy my own second car. I kept every receipt, every text. I told myself it was temporary, that one day she'd make it right. She never did. And I never said no. Part of me wanted to prove I wasn't the selfish one they thought I was. Another part was afraid of what would happen if I stopped. The family already saw me as cold. Refusing would make me cruel. So I stayed quiet, writing invisible checks to preserve their illusion of Amanda's perfect life. But that Thanksgiving felt different. Maybe it was the way Derek avoided eye contact, or how Amanda's laughter came too sharp, too brittle. Something was cracking beneath the gloss. I didn't know it yet, but that night would be the last time they ever underestimated me. Dinner began the same way it always did, Dad, carving the turkey like a surgeon, while Amanda narrated her life like a reality show. "Derek just expanded his practice," she announced, passing him a glass of Pinot like she was awarding a trophy. "We're thinking of buying the house next door. The kids want a pool." The table erupted with admiration. I smiled the kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes, and sipped my water. My pie sat untouched on the counter, shrinking under the glow of her $200 charcuterie board. Then my cousin Maya spoke up. "I've been drowning in student loans," she said softly. "I can barely make minimum payments." I looked up, ready to help. "I can show you a few options to consolidate." Mom cut me off, voice sharp but polite. "Not now, Olivia. Not everyone wants to talk about numbers." Amanda jumped in, eager for attention. "Maya, you should talk to me. I'm great with money, great with money." I nearly laughed. This was the woman whose minimum payments I'd been covering for years. Still, I said nothing. Maya nodded, trying to be polite. Amanda launched into vague advice about budgeting and manifesting abundance. I stared at my plate until the edges blurred. After dinner, I found Maya alone in the kitchen loading dishes. "Hey," I said quietly. "If you want, I can send you some real resources. No pressure." She smiled with relief, but before she could answer, Amanda's voice sliced through the air. "Oh my God, Olivia, can you not?" She was standing in the doorway, wine in hand, expression sharp enough to cut glass. "I was just offering—" "She doesn't need your lectures," Amanda snapped. "She needs actual help." I froze. "I work in finance, Amanda." She laughed. "And yet you can't even manage your own money. Everyone knows you're always broke. That's why you live in that tiny apartment." The words landed like slaps. Behind her, Dad appeared, drawn by the noise. "What's going on? Amanda's right," Mom said quickly. "If you're struggling, Liv, you can tell us." I stared at them. "Struggling?" Amanda's eyes glittered. "She's always asking me for money, Dad. It's embarrassing." That did it. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. For a second, I thought maybe I'd misheard, but the pity in Mom's face told me I hadn't. I had spent 4 years quietly funding her perfect life, her designer handbags, her spa days, her vacations, and now, in front of the whole family, she was rewriting the story, painting me as the beggar. My hands shook, but my voice didn't. "I've never asked you for a single dollar," I said. Amanda tilted her head, smiling like I was being dramatic. "Liv, just stop. It's fine. We get it." But it wasn't fine. It was the moment everything I'd swallowed for years began to burn its way back up. The kitchen went still. Even the clinking of dishes stopped. Amanda stood there, cheeks flushed, eyes bright with victory. She thought she'd humiliated me, but something inside me shifted quietly, almost peacefully, like a final switch flipping off. I pulled my phone from my pocket. "You're right," I said softly. "I should stop asking you for money." She smirked. Finally, some self-awareness. My thumb opened my banking app. 6 scheduled payments appeared in blue lines across the screen: her credit cards, her car loan, her insurance, her household bills. 4 years of handouts disguised as sisterly love. "Family helps family, right?" she said, sipping her wine. "Right," I answered, "but maybe not like this." The room watched me, unsure what I was doing. Then, one by one, I began canceling every payment. A tiny buzz confirmed each deletion. Canceled, canceled, canceled. "Olivia," my mother said sharply, "what are you doing? Taking responsibility for my choices," I said, repeating Amanda's favorite phrase. Amanda's phone buzzed once, then again, then 3 times in a row. She ignored it at first, but the alerts came faster, one after another, until the room filled with the sharp digital hum of her life falling apart. "What's that?" Dad asked. Amanda's smile wavered. "It's nothing." Her screen lit up again. Payment failed. Autopay declined. Insufficient funds. The silence that followed was surgical. I slipped my phone back into my pocket and smoothed my sweater. "I should go," I said evenly. "You're right, Amanda. I need to stop making my problems everyone else's." I left before anyone could answer. Behind me, I heard her phone ringing non-stop. Chase. Capital One. The ghosts of every secret bill I'd been paying. At home, I poured myself tea and opened my laptop. Years of bank records sat waiting, every transfer, every please, just this once, every promise she'd never kept. I built a spreadsheet, color-coded by year. The total stared back at me, $41,300. When her first frantic voicemail arrived, I didn't answer. Then came more. Her voice swung from angry to desperate to tearful. "Olivia, please, I don't know what you did, but Derek's asking questions. Fix this, please." The next morning, the calls came from my parents. "She's your sister," Mom pleaded. "You can't just cut her off." "I didn't cut her off," I said. "I just stopped paying her bills." Silence. They couldn't argue with that. By the end of the week, Amanda's entire illusion had collapsed, her cards frozen, her credit tanking, Derek finally seeing the truth she'd buried under Burberry and filters. The family's golden child was unraveling, and for the first time I didn't feel guilt. I felt air, light, space. Because sometimes justice doesn't need an audience. It just needs a password, a steady hand, and the courage to hit cancel. By Monday morning, I'd stopped counting how many times she called. 19 voicemails, 42 texts, each one more frantic than the last. I didn't listen to them at first. I wanted silence. Clean, heavy silence. But when I finally did, they played like a confession tape. "Olivia, what the hell did you do? My payments aren't going through, Liv. Please, the bank called. Derek's freaking out. Please, I'm serious. This isn't funny. Then one from my mother, Amanda, is very upset. You need to fix whatever this is. Fix." That word had followed me my entire life. I'd fixed Amanda's debts, her drama, her image. I'd fixed the family narrative every time she stumbled. But not this time. At 8:47 a.m., an unknown number flashed on my screen. I answered. Miss Richardson, this is Janet from Chase Bank. We're confirming the cancellation of recurring payments on an account ending in 7734. That's correct, I said. May I ask why you were making payments on someone else's card? I took a slow breath. Family arrangement. It's over. Pause. Then understood. Cancellation complete. When I hung up, I knew there was no going back. By noon, Amanda texted again. You said you'd help me. Why are you doing this to me? I typed back. You told me to stop asking you for money. I'm just following instructions. The typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Then her final message. I have $87,000 in debt. I can't fix this alone. There it was, the truth in writing, the number she'd hidden from Derek, the secret I'd been protecting. I didn't reply. I just screenshotted it, archived it, and closed my phone. That afternoon, my father called. His voice was measured the way it gets when he's trying to sound reasonable. Olivia, your sister's in serious trouble. The credit card companies are threatening to send her to collections. I know. Then you need to do something. I did, I said. I stopped paying her bills. He sighed heavily. That's heartless. She's your sister. I was her sister when I sent $40,000 she never returned. I'm still her sister now. I'm just not her lifeline. You've changed. No, Dad. I've stopped pretending this is love. By Tuesday, the family chat was buzzing. Aunt Susan called to check in. Then Brian texted, followed by a voicemail from Maya. I ignored them all until Maya's second message came through. Olivia, I just found out. She told everyone you were begging her for money while you were paying her bills. That's insane. I could hear the disbelief in her voice. You have to tell people the truth. I don't need to, I said quietly. The truth's already catching up. And it did, faster than I expected. Thursday evening, my phone rang again. Derek. For a second, I almost didn't answer. Then I did. Hey, he said, voice tight. I wanted to hear it from you. You've been paying her credit cards, yes. For how long? 4 years. Silence. Then a sound halfway between a sigh and a laugh. Jesus Christ, I didn't want to get between you two. You weren't between us. You were under us, holding her up. I didn't know what to say. He kept going. She told me you were jealous, that you couldn't manage your own money. I believed her. I swallowed. Now you know. Yeah, now I know. Derek wasn't angry. He sounded tired. The kind of tired that comes after years of denial. He thanked me, then apologized. Not for Amanda, for believing the wrong person. Friday morning, Amanda showed up at my apartment. No makeup eyes, swollen, wearing sweatpants that probably cost more than my entire outfit. She looked small for the first time in her life. Can I come in? I should have said no. But I stepped aside. She sat at my kitchen table, tracing a finger along the edge of her coffee mug. I messed up. Yes, I said. I was drunk at Thanksgiving. I just wanted them to think I was doing well. I didn't mean what I said. You called me a beggar. Her lip trembled. I was scared. Derek was getting suspicious. I thought if I made you look worse than you, I finished for her. She nodded. I don't know what to do, Liv. The credit cards are frozen. The car might get repossessed. Derek's furious. I stayed quiet. Please, she whispered, just for a few months. I'll get a job. I'll pay you back. You've been saying that for 4 years. Her tears came fast, ugly, real. You don't understand. I'll lose everything. No, I said softly. You already did. She blinked at me like she hadn't processed it yet. I stood and opened the door. I can't, I said. Not again. She hesitated. I really am sorry. I believe you're sorry it's over, I said. But I don't think you're sorry for what you did. She left without another word. That night, I sat on my couch, my small, quiet couch in my small, quiet apartment, and exhaled for what felt like the first time in years. My phone vibrated once. A new text from Derek. She's telling the truth about being sorry. I'm handling it. She's working now. Thank you for everything. I didn't reply. Not yet. Some things don't need words, because revenge isn't always fire and spectacle. Sometimes it's the slow, steady silence of a door that finally stays closed. And in that silence, for the first time, I heard my own life start again. By the time spring came, the story of that Thanksgiving had been picked clean by every branch of our family tree. The older generation whispered that I had gone cold, while the cousins quietly called to say I'd done the right thing. I didn't correct anyone. I was tired of correcting people. Derek sold Amanda's SUV and bought her a used sedan. He canceled the Turks and Caicos trip, took over all their accounts, and set up automatic transfers to pay down her debt. Amanda started working at a local boutique 40 hours a week on her feet. The girl who used to post from luxury resorts now posted pictures of folded sweaters and discount handbags. Mom tried to stage family dinners to reconcile us. I went, but I didn't play the old role anymore. I brought my own dessert, smiled politely, left early. Amanda avoided my eyes, and I didn't chase her down to make it better. One morning, about 6 months after that night, my phone buzzed with a payment notification, $500 deposited to my account. A message followed first payment. It'll take me 16 years, but I'm going to pay you back every dollar. I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to send it back. Another part knew she needed to do this for herself. I typed 2 words, received. Thank you. Life moved quietly after that. I redirected that $600 a month into investments. By the next Thanksgiving, my portfolio was up 34%. I still lived simply, but now every piece of furniture, every quiet morning coffee felt like mine. Paid for, earned untied from anyone else's chaos. At Christmas, Amanda and I stood side by side in Mom's kitchen again, strangers who shared the same childhood. She handed me a plate of cookies without meeting my eyes. I'm working on it, she said. I know I told her. It wasn't forgiveness. It was acknowledgement. Maya hugged me before she left that night. You taught me not to let people walk all over me, she whispered. You did that by finally not letting them walk over you. That's when I realized the truth. The moment I stopped being the family scapegoat wasn't when Amanda's phone lit up with declined payments. It was when I stopped apologizing for doing what was right. A year later, Thanksgiving looked smaller, fewer guests, less noise. But for once, the quiet felt right. I sat at the same table where everything had fallen apart 12 months before and realized I wasn't waiting for anyone's approval anymore. I'd spent most of my life trying to be the sister who fixed things until I learned that fixing others can break you in ways no one sees. Amanda was polite, calm, almost shy. She passed me the mashed potatoes, and for the first time, there was no hidden performance behind her smile. I didn't feel anger anymore, just distance, the kind that finally feels peaceful. I left early, walked out into the cold night, and thought about all the things I'd bought back with my silence, my dignity, my savings, my self-respect. I used to think revenge meant making them hurt. But real revenge is just living well, unbothered, free. If you've ever been the one who held a family together until it broke you, this story is for you. Drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from your stories. Remind me I'm not alone. And if you believe that setting boundaries isn't cruelty, but courage, hit subscribe. There are more stories like this about people who finally stopped apologizing for saving themselves. I used to think graduation day would finally make things feel equal between my sister and me. We crossed the same stage, wore the same gown, heard the same applause. But only one of us walked that journey without drowning in bills and night shifts. My parents paid for Callie's tuition and every luxury she wanted. All I ever got was the same line they'd repeated my whole life. You were always the strong one. I believed it until the moment they showed up smiling at our ceremony, and their faces suddenly drained of color when they realized what I'd achieved without them. My name is Gianna Harper, and for as long as I can remember, people have mistaken quietness for strength. I grew up in a small house in Oregon, where the walls held more expectations than affection, and where love, at least the version handed to my sister, felt effortless, abundant, almost blinding. Callie was the sparkly one, the golden one, the daughter my parents seemed proud to display. I was the other half, the one who blended into door frames and learned early how to fold disappointment into silence. Some of my earliest memories carry a strange heaviness, like the Christmas when Callie unwrapped a dollhouse taller than her with tiny lights that flickered like real windows while I opened a thin notebook and a pen. Mom smiled and said, "You're the writing type, sweetie." I pretended to love it. That night, I hugged the notebook, not because it meant something, but because there was nothing else to hold. Or the time Callie scraped her knee falling off the backyard slide, barely a scratch, and Mom rushed out screaming her name like the world was ending. A week later, she was still retelling the story to neighbors. Meanwhile, when I fell from the apple tree and hit the ground so hard my vision blurred, Dad only glanced out the window and said, "Gianna's tough. Let her handle it." That sentence spoken so casually became the script of my childhood. You're tough. You'll manage. You don't need what other people need. The only person who didn't treat me like I was carved from stone was my grandmother Margaret. She lived in Montana, visiting only a few times a year, but every visit felt like a warm patch of sunlight. Once, when Callie showed off a new crystal bracelet, Grandma slipped a small wooden hair clip into my hand, my name carved on the back. "It's not expensive," she whispered, "but it's one of a kind, just like you." I wore it whenever I felt invisible, like a reminder that someone somewhere truly saw me. School didn't change much. I worked hard, got high grades, won essay contests. Callie drew sunflowers and got them taped to the fridge. When I earned a district writing award, Mom didn't even look up from the stove. But when Callie got a B+ in history, she invited the neighbors over to celebrate. I learned to swallow my pride quietly. By the time we got into college, the pattern was already set. Callie's full tuition paid, a new laptop, a monthly allowance, an apartment she didn't have to clean. I moved into a damp basement dorm and stacked multiple jobs to stay afloat. Every time I called home, exhausted, Mom would say the same sentence like a lullaby made of guilt. "You were always the strong one, Gianna." It was meant to praise me, but it only reminded me that no one ever planned to hold me up. And yet, despite everything, a small part of me still believed that graduation might change something, that maybe this time they would finally see me. College didn't break me, but it reshaped me in ways I never admitted out loud. While Callie floated through those 4 years, like she was on a guided tour, new outfits, weekend getaways, brunch photos with friends, I was learning the price of survival. I woke before sunrise to mop classroom floors, tutored high school students in the afternoons, and worked late shifts in the library. I tracked every dollar in a tiny notebook, calculating how many hours of work equaled a tank of gas or a week of groceries. Callie never asked how I was doing. She'd wave at me across campus sometimes, always surrounded by people, always laughing like the world bent to make her comfortable. Whenever she talked about exams or stress, Mom would say, "Don't push yourself too hard, honey." But when I mentioned working 3 jobs, Mom's voice would soften into that familiar dismissive reassurance. "You were always the strong one, Gianna. You'll be fine." Strength in her eyes meant I didn't get to need anything. I remember one particular afternoon during junior year. I had just finished a 4-hour shift shelving books when I spotted my parents' car outside the student center. For a brief second, excitement startled me. Maybe they were here to see me. Maybe they finally wanted to know how I was really doing. But when I walked outside, Callie was already in their arms, twirling a new purse they'd brought her just because. They barely noticed me standing there, sweat dampening my collar from rushing out. Dad waved half-heartedly, and Mom said, "Oh, sweetie didn't see you. You look tired. Callie needs help choosing classes. Could you give her advice?" Advice. As if effort was the only thing I had to offer. Moments like that repeated again and again, small cuts never deep enough to kill me outright, but enough to make breathing sting. Still, I kept moving forward. I studied late, applied for internships I wasn't sure I deserved, and built a future piece by piece with hands no one expected anything from. By senior year, I had stopped waiting for my parents to ask about my accomplishments. When I got selected for an advanced accounting seminar, I celebrated alone with a cheap muffin from the campus cafe. When a professor pulled me aside to praise my analytical work, I smiled quietly and rode home on a bike with rusting spokes. Graduation loomed like a finish line and a funeral all at once, the end of being overlooked, but also the confirmation that nothing I did had changed the way my parents saw me. Callie, meanwhile, talked nonstop about the photo shoot she planned for commencement. Mom already had her dress picked out. Dad joked about crying when Callie crossed the stage. I wasn't part of any of those conversations. Somewhere inside, a quiet truth began to settle. If they hadn't seen me, by now they never truly would. The week before graduation was supposed to feel triumphant, but for me it felt strangely hollow. I'd spent 4 years stitching myself together with determination, late nights, and quiet endurance, yet standing on the edge of that milestone, I felt more invisible than ever. While Callie floated through the days planning hairstyles and photo angles, I juggled extra shifts to cover the last of my outstanding bills. My parents never asked whether I needed help with a cap and gown transportation, or even a meal to celebrate afterward. One night after finishing a tutoring session, I stepped outside into the cool air and checked my phone. A text from Mom blinked on the screen. "Hey, sweetie, we're thinking of taking Callie out for a graduation brunch afterward. You should come if you're free." If I'm free. As if I were an accessory to the event. As if the day meant nothing for me. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I walked slowly back to my dorm, the hallway lights flickering overhead, casting long shadows along the peeling walls. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wooden hair clip Grandma had given me years ago. I hadn't worn it in a long time. It reminded me too much of wanting things I didn't believe I deserved. But that night, I held it differently. Not as a reminder of loss, but as a reminder of truth. Someone had once seen me clearly. The next morning, something shifted. Not anger, just clarity. I opened an email I had saved for weeks, a confirmation that I would be receiving a departmental award during the commencement ceremony. It wasn't flashy, but it mattered. My name, my effort, my work all recognized without anyone's influence but my own. I hadn't told my parents, partly because they never asked, partly because I didn't want to watch their indifference stain something so hard-earned. As the ceremony neared, I felt a strange calm settle into my chest. For the first time, I wasn't hoping they'd notice me. I wasn't rehearsing words. I wasn't imagining hugs. And I wasn't waiting for approval that had never existed. I ironed my gown alone, brewed a cheap cup of coffee, and looked at myself in the mirror. I didn't see the forgotten daughter anymore. I saw the woman who had survived everything thrown at her. Graduation wouldn't fix the past, but it would mark the moment I stopped carrying its weight. And without knowing it, my parents were walking straight into the first shock of their lives. Commencement. Morning arrived wrapped in sunlight, the kind that made the campus lawns glow and the brick buildings look almost unreal. Students swarmed around in gowns and honor cords, hugging, shouting, taking pictures like they were trying to freeze time. I walked alone toward the ceremony grounds, letting the noise wash over me without sinking in. My gown hung a little loose on the shoulders secondhand, but it felt right, honest, earned. I found my seat among rows of folding chairs set up beneath an archway of spring flowers. As I adjusted the tassel on my cap, I heard my name shouted across the crowd. "There she is." My parents waved as if I'd been the one missing all morning. Callie stood between them, radiant in a new white dress under her gown, makeup perfect, wearing the confidence of someone who'd never had to worry about anything more stressful than a late assignment. Mom hurried toward me first. "Sweetie, you should have told us where you were sitting. We almost lost you in the crowd." I smiled politely. I was just getting settled. Callie beamed at Mom. "We already took pictures by the fountain. You have to see them. They turned out so good, I think I'll frame the one with the dad." "That's the one," Dad said proudly. "My graduate." They never asked if I wanted a photo. When the ceremony began, the dean welcomed everyone, thanked donors and faculty, and congratulated parents for their unwavering support. I almost laughed. Support to me had been a myth, the kind of thing people talked about like it was universal, when really it was selective, distributed by preference, not fairness. Rows of graduates lined up to cross the stage. My stomach tightened with anticipation, not fear, but something sharper. I knew what was coming, even if my parents didn't. When Callie's name was called, Mom gasped dramatically, clutching her hands to her chest. Dad stood to take a dozen pictures. Callie walked with the practiced grace of someone performing for the camera. She blew a kiss toward them before stepping down. Mom wiped her eyes. "That's our girl, our girl." Not once in my life had that phrase ever included me. The ceremony continued until the announcer reached the special recognitions. My heartbeat quickened. The dean spoke into the microphone with deliberate clarity. Before we proceed with the final diplomas, we would like to honor a student whose exceptional academic performance and service to the department have earned her this year's Award for Excellence in Accounting. I felt it before my name was spoken, like the air shifted around me. This year's recipient is Gianna Harper. The applause was loud. Students near me clapped hard, even cheered. But the sound that cut through everything was the silence behind me. I turned my head slightly, and there they were, my parents, frozen. Callie's smile had slipped, replaced by something strained and unfamiliar. Mom's hands hovered midair as if she had planned to clap, but couldn't reconcile the movement with what she was seeing. Dad's jaw tightened, his expression twisting in a way I couldn't read. Their faces had gone pale, exactly like I knew they would. I walked toward the stage, every step grounding me deeper into myself. I felt tall, even in flat shoes. When the dean placed the certificate in my hands, I didn't look toward the cameras. I looked at the audience, directly at my parents, and for the first time in my life, they looked small. After the ceremony, while students swarmed their families, while laughter and photos filled the air, I lingered near the back of the crowd. They approached me slowly, like they were unsure whether they were allowed to. Mom spoke first. "Gianna, why didn't you tell us?" Her voice wasn't soft, it wasn't proud. It was bewildered, like my success had interrupted a story she thought she controlled. I met her eyes. "You never asked." It was the simplest truth I'd ever spoken, and it landed between us like a stone in water, rippling through every year of silence, every moment they'd overlooked me, every time they called me the strong one instead of their daughter. Dad cleared his throat. "We just didn't realize you were doing all that. You always seemed fine." "I had to seem fine," I said quietly. "You only check on the ones who seem fragile." Mom flinched. Callie stepped forward, then her smile tentative, her voice a whisper. "Gianna, we didn't know. I didn't know. I believed her more than I believed our parents. Callie had never needed to question the structure she'd been raised in. When the world is built for you, you rarely ask who built it." Before I could respond, a woman in a tailored suit approached me. She extended her hand. "Gianna Harper, I'm Lucinda. I've reviewed your seminar work with Professor Allen. If you're open to it, I'd love to talk to you about opportunities with our firm in New York." My breath caught, not from shock, but from the feeling of a door opening exactly where it was meant to. I shook her hand. "I'm definitely open to talking." Lucinda smiled warmly before walking off, leaving the four of us standing in a tension so thick it felt physical. Dad tried to recover his composure. "New York, that's big. Maybe we can help you figure things out," I cut him off gently. "I've been figuring things out on my own for a long time." Mom reached for my arm, her voice cracking. "Gianna, honey, we're proud of you. Of course we are." I stepped back, not harshly, but firmly. Pride isn't something you get to announce when it's convenient. There was no anger in my tone, just truth. Callie's eyes glistened, and for a moment she looked like a child again, lost, unsure. "Are we okay?" she asked faintly. I inhaled, let the air settle. "We will be, but not today, because today belonged to me, to the girl who walked alone, worked alone, endured alone, to the woman who didn't need permission to shine." As I walked away from them, sunlight hit the wooden hair clip in my hair, warm and steady. I didn't have to turn back to know they were still standing there, stunned, confronted by the reality they had shaped. For the first time in my life, their silence didn't hurt. It proved something I had always known but never accepted. Strength was never the excuse they claimed it to be. It was the truth I built when they gave me nothing else. I didn't leave campus right away. I found a quiet bench near the science building, the one place where the crowds thinned and the noise softened. My phone buzzed with messages from classmates, professors, even the department chair. Not a single one from my parents. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't hurt either. For the first time, there was nothing left inside me waiting for their reaction. Later that evening, as the sky faded to a soft orange, Callie texted me, "I'm sorry. I didn't see things the way you did. I want to understand." I stared at the message for a long time before replying, "Take your time." I did. That was enough for now. 2 days later, Lucinda emailed me a formal invitation to interview in New York. I read it 3 times, not because I doubted it, but because it felt like a door I had carved myself finally swung open. No inheritance, no safety net, no parental hand guiding me, just my work, my name, my courage. As I packed my dorm room, folding my gowns and notes into a single suitcase, I realized something simple and liberating. I wasn't running from anything. I was walking toward the life I had built with my own hands. I landed in New York a week later, stepping into a city that didn't know my past or the shadows I'd carried for years. And somehow that anonymity felt like freedom. I walked through Midtown with my resume tucked under my arm and the wooden hair clip steady in my hair, knowing every step forward was mine alone. Being the strong one had never been a compliment. It was the excuse they used to leave me behind. But now it was my power. If this story resonates with you, share your thoughts below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.